Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a diagnostic puzzle that completely rewrites how we understand human motivation.
Yeah, it really turns everything upside down.
It does, because for you listening, did you know that for a compulsive gambler, the human brain actually processes almost winning like a near miss as being just as physically and chemically gratifying as hitting a massive jackpot?
Right. It's one of the most counterintuitive and frankly dangerous neurological glitches we know of.
It's wild.
I mean, the brain essentially gets tricked into celebrating a total loss.
And that specific glitch is exactly what we are focusing on today. We are taking a stack of medical insights, psychological research, and family support blueprints to unpack this really complex world of gambling addiction.
There is a lot to cover, definitely.
Right, so our mission here is twofold. First, we need to understand the absolute neuroscience of why people physically cannot just walk away.
Essential to get that foundation first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And equally importantly, we are going to explore the practical, emotional roadmap for how families can survive this, how they can detach from codependency and figure out if shattered trust can ever actually be rebuilt.
Yeah, the family dynamic is just as crucial as the neuroscience.
Okay, let's unpack this. And to do that, we have to start at the absolute center of the storm, which is the brain.
We do. Because to understand the destructive behaviors of a gambler, you first have to unlearn the idea that this is just, a bad habit or some kind of moral failing.
Right, it's not just a lack of willpower.
Not at all. The diagnostic consensus is very clear now. Gambling disorder is officially recognized as a mental health condition, fundamentally because it hijacks the brain.
Wow.
Yeah, the research shows that gambling stimulates the brain's reward system in a way that is structurally identical to how substances like drugs or alcohol operate.
Okay, I want to slow down right there because hijacking the reward system is a phrase we hear a lot, but what is actually happening under the hood?
Right, it sounds like a buzzword.
Exactly. The sources outline 3 different hypotheses for how this system goes rogue, and I want to make sure we really grasp the mechanisms here.
Sure, let's break them down. So the first one is called reward deficiency syndrome.
Okay.
Imagine your brain has a baseline level of dopamine, the chemical that makes you feel satisfaction or pleasure.
Right, the feel-good stuff.
Exactly. But in this syndrome, the gambler's baseline is chronically low. They have a sluggish, underactive reward system.
So they just don't feel normal joy.
Pretty much. So everyday things, eating a good meal, taking a walk, chatting with a friend, they just don't register. They constantly seek massive, high-risk external jolts just to feel a normal level of satisfaction.
Oh, wow. So they're effectively self-medicating a chemical deficit.
Precisely.
But then, looking at the reading, the second hypothesis seems to argue the exact opposite.
Yeah, that's impulsivity theory. This one argues the reward system is actually hyperactive. The engine is running way too hot.
So they're too sensitive to rewards.
Right. Their brain is overly sensitive to potential rewards, so they are constantly driven to seek them out because the internal urge is just overwhelmingly loud.
It's like they can't turn down the volume.
Exactly. It's less about feeling normal and more about an inability to hit the brakes on a hyperactive drive.
Got it. Now, the third one, incentive salience, this is one I struggled with a bit in the reading.
Oh, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it talks about the difference between liking something and wanting something. Can you explain that, like, I'm 5, how does liking turn into a problem?
It's a really crucial distinction. Think about eating a piece of chocolate cake. You like it, right?
Yeah.
Right. It tastes good. It brings pleasure. Now think about holding your breath underwater for a minute. When you finally break the surface, you don't just like oxygen.
I need it.
You physically, desperately want it to survive. So in incentive salience, the brain's reward circuitry gets hypersensitized.
Oh.
The
Yeah.
gambling shifts from being a fun activity you like doing to a primal compulsive urge you want or crave, exactly like craving oxygen.
That is terrifying.
It really is. At a certain point, the gambler doesn't even enjoy the casino anymore. They look miserable sitting there, but they cannot stop because the brain is screaming that they need this to survive.
It's no longer about pleasure at all. It's just this false survival instinct.
Exactly.
And that brings us right back to that opening hook about the near miss. Our sources note that dopamine plays a huge role not just in winning, but in the anticipation of a bet.
Yes. When a problem gambler experiences a near miss, say, they're playing a slot machine and 2 sevens line up, but the third 7 lands just 1 millimeter off the pay line, their brain's reward centers light up exactly as if they had hit the jackpot.
Unbelievable. Dopamine just floods the system anyway.
It bloods it completely.
So it's like the brain is handing out a gold medal rush of dopamine for a participation trophy. It's validating a total failure as a massive success.
That is a phenomenal analogy. The brain is literally reinforcing the behavior of losing.
Wow.
And this fuels a very specific cognitive distortion known as the illusion of control.
Right, the gambler's fallacy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. When a gambler experiences that dopamine hit from a near miss, they don't think, wow, I just lost my money. They think, I almost had it. I am figuring out the pattern.
Oh, so they think they can beat the system.
Right. They start to believe that specific rituals like tapping the screen a certain way or betting at a certain time of day actually influence a completely random algorithm. It provides this deeply false confidence that they are in the driver's seat.
Which is an illusion the casinos are heavily banking on, frankly.
Oh, absolutely.
But I want to pivot slightly to the emotional profile of the people who fall into this, because there was a statistic that really caught my eye.
The one about alexithymia.
Yes. Some of the psychological research notes that 34% of problem gamblers exhibit alexithymia, compared to only 11% in non-problem gamblers.
Yeah, so alexithymia is fundamentally a difficulty in identifying, processing, and expressing your own emotions.
Right, but here is my question. If someone is struggling to process their internal emotions, why on earth would they seek out the loudest, brightest, most chaotic environment imaginable?
Like a casino floor.
Yeah, or a rapid-fire betting app. Wouldn't they want peace and quiet?
It's a great question, but it speaks to the core of escapism. They aren't looking for peace, they're looking for numbness.
Oh, interesting.
When someone cannot process internal emotional static stress, depression, profound loneliness, the sheer sensory overload of gambling becomes a refuge. It drowns out the internal noise.
So it's like emotional static interference.
Exactly. Modern online slots, for example, aren't just games. They are sophisticated algorithms custom-built to find the exact frequency of lights, sounds, and near misses that bypasses the prefrontal cortex entirely.
Wow.
It forces the brain into a state of intense hypnotic focus where all other worldly problems simply vanish for a few hours.
So if the brain is physically prioritizing that hypnotic escape and validating near misses over reality, the immediate casualty in the real world is going to be the truth.
100%.
Let's move from the internal chemistry to the external fallout, because a compulsion of this magnitude relies entirely on secrecy, doesn't it?
It does. And the anatomy of this deception is really important for families to understand because it rarely starts out of pure malice.
Right.
The lies usually begin out of profound fear and shame. The gambler starts hiding maxed out credit cards, intercepting the mail to hide late notices, or lying about where they were after work.
Just to keep up the facade.
Yeah, they do this because they are terrified of disappointing their partner, and they are ashamed to admit that their brain has lost control.
That makes sense.
They genuinely rationalize it by telling themselves, well, if I just get one big win tomorrow, I can put all the money back, and my family will never even have to know I messed up.
But the math guarantees tomorrow never comes. The hole just gets deeper.
Always.
And the sources are very clear that while the financial devastation is catastrophic, the deepest wounds in these relationships are not about the money.
What's fascinating here is that a family can eventually declare bankruptcy, consolidate debt, and rebuild their finances over time. But the real devastation is the profound sense of emotional betrayal.
Because of the lying.
Exactly. Trust is the absolute currency of intimacy, and a secret gambling addiction bankrupts it completely.
Right.
The partner feels entirely abandoned because the gambler has been living a completely parallel, hidden life for months or years.
And then, when the secret finally comes out, or when the money physically runs out and the gambler is forced to stop, the family is hit with another massive hurdle.
The withdrawal.
Yes. The sources detail that stopping gambling triggers actual neurological withdrawal. I think people associate withdrawal with heroin or alcohol, but not with an app on your phone.
Right, but because the chemical dependency in the brain is so similar to substance abuse, the sudden absence of that dopamine flood causes a severe crash. The central nervous system is thrown into chaos.
So how does that actually manifest in the living room? What does it look like?
It manifests as severe anxiety, intense irritability, restlessness, and often deep depression. The gambler is physically agitated. Their brain is screaming for dopamine, and they have no healthy way to get it. This is a nightmare for loved ones because the partner is already dealing with the trauma of betrayal, and now the gambler is snapping at them.
Acting completely distant.
Yeah, or even blaming the family for the tension in the house.
It's so unfair to the partner, who is just standing there bearing the brunt of a chemical crash they didn't even cause.
Incredibly unfair.
So for families who might be in the dark, trying to figure out why their home feels like a war zone. What are the specific red flags?
Well, unexplained debts and missing money are the obvious ones.
Hmm.
But on an interpersonal level, you want to watch for sudden, aggressive defensiveness around incredibly simple money questions.
Like what?
If you ask, hey, did the electric bill clear, and they erupt in anger, that's a massive red flag.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Another is abruptly hiding phone screens or minimizing browser tabs the second you walk into the room.
Just general secrecy.
Right. But the most profound red flag is entirely internal to the partner. It's a persistent, painful sense of uncertainty. It's the gut feeling that you no longer fully know the person sitting across the kitchen table.
That is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So let's say the truth comes out. A family recognizes the deception. They see the addiction for what it is.
Right.
The immediate, very human instinct for a spouse or a parent is to throw a lifeline. You want to save the person you love.
Naturally.
But our sources dedicate a lot of time to explaining why this specific instinct can actually destroy both of you.
Yeah.
We need to explore the trap of codependency.
Codependency is perhaps the most dangerous hurdle in the early stages of addiction recovery.
Really, the most dangerous.
Yes. It occurs when a loved one becomes entirely reliant on managing and meeting the gambler's needs at the absolute expense of their own emotional, physical, and financial well-being.
I see.
It almost always stems from a deep, paralyzing fear of abandonment or catastrophe. The partner thinks, well, if I don't fix this mess for them, they will end up on the street or they will completely self-destruct and it will be my fault.
So the partner starts prioritizing the gambler's crisis over everything else. They take over all the responsibilities. They constantly try to buffer the gambler from stress.
Exactly.
And then they feel immense guilt if they try to take a step back and just breathe.
Yeah, and the tragic irony is that by constantly rescuing the gambler, you inadvertently reinforce the gambling behavior. You are shielding them from the natural consequences of their actions.
Okay, I want to push back on this because it sounds good in theory, but the reality is incredibly messy.
Oh, very messy.
Right? If my partner gambles away the mortgage payment and the sources say I shouldn't enable them by bailing them out, what am I supposed to do? If I let the house go into foreclosure or the car get repossessed, that hurts me and it hurts our kids.
That's the core struggle.
How is letting my family drown supposed to be supportive?
That is the absolute hardest question families face, and it requires extreme nuance. The goal isn't to punish yourself to teach them a lesson. You have to draw a line between protecting the family's core assets and shielding the gambler from their specific discomfort.
Oh, I think I see where you're going.
For example, true support might mean you legally separate your bank accounts to ensure the mortgage and groceries are paid from money they cannot access. You protect the house.
Right.
But if they gambled away the money for their personal car payment, you don't take on a second job to save their car, you let it get repossessed, and they have to figure out how to take the bus.
Oh, wow. So it's about structural boundaries. You secure the oxygen mask for yourself and the kids first.
Precisely. Enabling is paying off their bookie or covering their personal loans so they don't feel the shame of default. Non-enabling emotional support is looking them in the eye and saying, I love you, I will support you going to therapy, but I will not give you a single dollar, and you have to face the creditors yourself.
That makes total sense. So practically speaking, setting those boundaries means putting up literal financial firewalls, removing their name from joint credit cards, freezing their credit, or requiring dual authorization at the bank for any transfer over $20.
Yes. And communicating those boundaries is just as critical as setting them. The research emphasizes the power of empathetic I statements.
Which can be hard in the moment.
Extremely hard. When emotions are high, the instinct is to scream, you are ruining our lives, you are so selfish. But that just triggers their defensiveness and shame, which, as we know, drives them right back to gambling to escape the pain.
So how do you actually phrase it?
Well, you focus on your own boundaries. You say, I am deeply worried about how gambling is affecting you, and I am exhausted by the financial stress.
Leading with the feeling.
Right. And then you say, I love you, but I cannot and will not enable your gambling anymore. My finances are now separate.
Wow. It removes the character attack, but it holds a wall of steel around your boundaries.
Exactly.
That is incredibly powerful. Because once those boundaries stop the act of bleeding, once the money is cut off, you can actually begin the road to true recovery.
Right.
And a major theme across all our sources is that because this is a complex neurological disorder, remember, the brain has literally been rewired. Professional treatment is non-negotiable.
You cannot just rely on willpower. The brain's chemistry has been fundamentally altered.
Right.
Professional treatment, whether that's an addiction psychiatrist, cognitive behavioral therapy, or specialized telehealth programs, is necessary to help the brain build new neural pathways that don't rely on gambling for dopamine.
And a lot of these recovery programs utilize a roadmap called the cycle of change. I won't walk through this because I think it gives families a realistic expectation of what recovery actually looks and feels like over the long haul.
Yeah, it's very helpful for setting expectations.
It's not just a straight lineup, right?
Not at all. It usually starts with pre-contemplation. This is the stage where the gambler doesn't really think they have a major problem, or they are highly defensive.
Denial, basically.
Yeah. Then comes contemplation. This is a stage of deep ambivalence. They have a love-hate relationship with gambling. They might tearfully confess they need help one night, but then rationalize placing a small bet the next day.
It's the back and forth phase.
Yeah.
And then we move into preparation and action, where they're actually going to therapy, handing over their finances, and putting in the work.
Exactly.
But the stage that I found most interesting and where families need the most guidance is the maintenance phase. This is when the gambler has hit roughly the 6-month mark of being gamble-free. What is happening in the brain here?
So at 6 months, the brain's dopamine receptors are slowly trying to upregulate and return to a normal baseline, but it is a frustrating, uneven process.
I can imagine.
Everyday life can still feel very dull to the gambler. The initial high of getting clean has worn off, and now they are just facing the grueling reality of paying off debt and living a quiet life.
Which is why the sources give families a massive warning here: expect mood swings. The crucial advice is that you have to detach enough to not overanalyze every single bad mood.
This is so important. If it's a random Tuesday and your partner is incredibly irritable, it does not automatically mean they have relaxed.
Right.
If a partner constantly hovers and asks, "Are you gambling again? Why are you in a bad mood?" every time the gambler sighs, it injects an unbearable amount of anxiety into the house.
It's almost like a symptom of that codependency again.
It is an artifact of codependency.
Yeah.
You have to give them the space to just have a normal, grumpy Tuesday without it being a referendum on their sobriety.
You have to let them be human. And eventually the goal is to reach the termination stage where the day-to-day craving is gone.
Right.
But even then, vigilance is required. The sources warn about something called cross-addiction. Can you explain that?
So even in long-term recovery, the brain's reward system might still have some vulnerabilities. The brain looks for a new way to get a dopamine spike that isn't gambling.
Like a substitute.
Yeah. A relapse might not mean walking into a casino. It could manifest as suddenly developing a compulsive shopping habit, extreme overeating, or substance misuse. The underlying neurological drive just shifts to a new target.
Which proves why the professional therapy has to address the root emotional issues, not just the act of betting.
Absolutely.
And while the gambler's doing all this work, we have to talk about the family's self-care, because surviving this marathon causes intense emotional burnout.
It really does. The partner is carrying the weight of the world. To survive, you absolutely have to find opportunities for normality.
You can't just be the recovery police 24/7.
No, you cannot make monitoring the addiction the sole focus of your existence. You need to intentionally schedule time to see friends, go for a run, or engage in hobbies that have nothing to do with recovery.
And a huge part of that self-care is finding a community that actually understands. Group support for families, like Gam-Anon, was highlighted as a total lifesaver.
Being the partner of an addict is one of the most profoundly isolating experiences a person can have.
Because of the shame.
Yes. You feel immense shame, and it's hard to explain to regular friends why you've frozen your credit or why you're checking your spouse's phone. Sitting in a room, even a virtual one, with people who completely understand the specific, bizarre chaos of gambling addiction immediately breaks that isolation.
I bet that's incredibly validating.
It is. You gain highly practical advice from people who are further along the path, and it builds incredible emotional resilience. You learn how to detach with love.
So if we look at the whole picture here, the boundaries are set, the finances are protected, the gambler is in professional treatment, and the partner is finding strength in support groups.
Right. All the pillars are in place.
We arrive at the ultimate question. How do you put the pieces of a fractured family back together? How do you restore intimacy when there has been a literal history of betrayal?
It requires a fundamental paradigm shift. Transparency cannot just be a promise anymore. It has to become the formalized structure of the relationship.
Rebuilding trust takes years, right?
Years, yes. And it requires verifiable action.
I really like the practical steps suggested for this. It's about taking the pressure off willpower. You install gambling app blockers or accountability software on all devices. And the experts highly recommend implementing a weekly money check-in.
Yes, the money check-in is key. You sit down at the kitchen table, calmly and openly, and you look at the budget together.
Just laying it all out.
Treat it almost like a business meeting. No secrets, no defensive posturing. It's a shared reality. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of intimacy, confronting these incredibly difficult, ugly problems together, usually with the help of a couples counselor, can actually forge a bond that is stronger and more honest than the one you had before the addiction.
Because you survived the fire together.
Exactly.
And rebuilding intimacy isn't about grand romantic gestures or expensive vacations. It's about rediscovering the quiet, simple joys that the addiction slowly stole away.
Right, the little thing.
It's getting back to having a meaningful conversation over a cup of coffee without wondering if the electric bill is going to bounce. It's replacing the old adrenaline triggers with shared, healthy routines.
Exactly. True connection and intimacy can only thrive in the complete absence of secrets. It's a journey of transforming a hyperactive reward system and a chaotic household back to a state where everyday, normal life is finally enough.
So, to summarize this incredibly deep well of information, recovery from gambling is not just about a gambler deciding to stop a bad habit. It is a massive structural team effort.
It really takes a village.
It requires setting unshakable financial boundaries, utilizing professional treatment to literally rewrite the brain's chemistry, detaching from codependency to protect your own sanity, and committing to radical, sometimes uncomfortable, open communication to rebuild trust.
It is the hardest work a family will ever do, but the blueprints for success absolutely exist. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought based on the trajectory of the research.
Oh, definitely. Let's hear it.
We talk a lot about the near miss today, how the brain gets tricked by 2 sevens on a slot machine. But consider the current pace of technology. Family support groups are sounding the alarm that online gambling apps are advancing at a terrifying speed, bringing us toward a societal epidemic of disordered gambling.
Right. We all carry a casino in our pockets now.
We do. So as artificial intelligence and predictive algorithms become infinitely more sophisticated, how might the very definition of a near miss evolve?
That's a scary thought.
As technology gets even better at mimicking the exact brain triggers of a win, using our personalized data to push our specific psychological buttons at the exact moment we feel stressed or vulnerable, what does the future of digital boundaries look like for all of us? Even for those without a clinical addiction?
That is a terrifying, massive, and necessary question to ponder as the digital world gets better at hacking our biology. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions, keep setting those healthy boundaries, and keep exploring the hidden science behind the behaviors we see every day. We'll catch you next time.